not Jalen Hurts.
Wow.
I mean, come on, man. Like, come on. You are seemingly driving your wide receivers to frustration in ways we've never seen previous in NFL history. 9-game winning streak. What's going on with the team? Passing game off. And then Brandon Graham's like, man, they're not even friends anymore. Then Drew's like, don't believe fake news. And now A.J. Brown's on the sideline reading Tony Robbins or someone, 10 ways to calm a troubled soul. Like, come on, Jalen. You're a bruised guy. You need to be better. Fourth row.
All right. So I'm going to now fast forward to listen to what Wilds had to say, and then I want to unpack this more because when I did the mountain as a whole, I did my whole breakdown and I defended Hurts fully, but I think Wilds did actually a good job. So let's jump to that, and then I want to unpack it even more deeply because the conversations around Jalen Hurts at this point really are just kind of getting absurd.
Not really the coach. I mean, a little bit, but they're not as pass catchers. No one's defending this guy. Maybe Dusty and Cab. Jalen Hurts. Just move him up one. Just move him up one. That's it. Just move him up right next to C.J. Stroud. When I say, why? I don't know. Guys won 11 games in a row. Does anyone care about that? Am I the only one that cares about how well Jalen has played in the last 11 games? Oh, Wilds, no, I want more yards. I'm not getting the yards. Okay, well, last year he had more yards. So do you want last year's statistics where he had more yards, or this year's where he's got more wins, completing a better percentage of his passes, a better TD to turnover ratio, it's cut in half, and a better passer rating? I would take this year and take the yards down just a little bit. And finally, my favorite part of a wedding, I got the wrong tone for this. My favorite part of the wedding, you know when you go to a wedding?
Probably yours, drinks.
No. My favorite part of the wedding is when the DJ gets up there and they do this, everybody starts dancing. And it's like, all right, if you've been married for 1 year, you gotta sit down. And everybody starts sitting down. That's what I do for the quarterbacks too. So it's like, all right, if you're in the playoffs, keep dancing. And everyone's dancing like, all right, if you've never been to the Super Bowl, sit down. And 4 guys would sit down. It's like, all right. And then you'd have 4 guys still dancing, just by themselves.
So you want Hurts higher on the mountain than Josh Allen and Lamar?
No, I'm just moving them up one. Just moving. It's just.
But then what about the dancing and who's sitting down? I don't understand.
They're sitting down because Hurts deserves I've been in the Super Bowl bump. That's it. Just like Goff deserves I've been in the Super Bowl bump. And Stafford and Mahomes deserve the we won the Super Bowl bump. And Mahomes deserves the I've won multiple Super Bowls bump.
I would agree with you on the Stafford deserves. However, when Bruce said move Lamar up and replace him with Stafford, I heard quite the amen from this side of the table. So maybe you don't necessarily agree that Stafford deserves the bump. But
just a bump.
Here's the thing. I actually, first of all, the mountain is valuing Jalen Hurts' this performance this year over his performance last year because last year, you know where he was on the divisional round mountain? Nowhere, because his team lost. So he wasn't there. But the reason that I can't simply say it's working, they're winning, is because his teammate is not saying that.
Who cares?
I do.
I don't. We're 11-0. I'm an Eagles guy. It's 11-0. You want to read a book? Who cares?
Book therapy.
11-0.
Keeping
winning.
Him calm.
Okay.
Not complaining.
Winning.
I'm listening.
I'm not going to name names, but I talked to a Super Bowl hero wide receiver that you all know. A big problem with that book. And
did Jalen Hurts have a problem?
If he did, what's he going to say?
He's a great leader. Sirianni was fine with it.
I can't.
Yeah, you hear that? Jalen is a great leader. Listen, I wholeheartedly agree that Jalen Hurts should be raised up. It's a shame. Again, this is why I really encourage people to kind of really diversify their sources of where they get information from. Especially if you're not good enough to like go through the all 22 and you don't watch all the games and stuff like that, especially if you don't watch all the games, which I understand. Not everyone's going to watch all the games. There's a lot of games out there. I mean, it's, you know, like, especially if you're not trying to like do this professionally or you have a lot of free time, like you just can't get to it. And so you do rely on these people And I respect it. I love it. It's why I consume it. It's why I try to do it myself. Like, you rely on these people to construct the narratives, to tell you what's going on. You know, before I really watched all the games, like, I tune into like Colin Cowherd, and, you know, I rely on him to tell me how good are the Miami Dolphins. I'll be honest, you know, and again, this season I watched the games, but in 2020 or, you know, whatever, I wasn't watching all these Miami Dolphins games. So I rely on Colin. Colin says, hey, the Dolphins team, they're not that good. I don't think that they can win in the playoffs, you know, beat the Chiefs on the road. I'm like, all right, I've only really saw like 2 games of the Dolphins this season. I saw the one Monday night game and the one Sunday night game. You know, that's what I saw. And so I'm kind of taking him for at his word, you know, in that example. And that's a random example. But that's why I encourage people to really kind of diversify, you know, kind of who you listen to. And it's why I diversify. That's why I kind of come from all different angles. And I'll do First Things First. I do The Herd. I do NFL Live, Get Up, etc. And I try to do all different voices. Even people that I know that I won't even necessarily 100% agree with, or people that I know going into the clip, there's a great chance I'm going to disagree. Like, you know, I try not to be too specific about that, but because I just try to find the best content that I can. But like, I made the video with Dan Orlovsky that I did last night at like 4 o'clock in the morning, because I literally couldn't sleep at night knowing that clip existed and that I didn't speak on it. That's real talk. I did the whole live stream of the Minnesota Vikings game versus the Rams, and right before that, because I had like a quick like 10 minutes downtime that I had to quickly eat as fast as I could before I jumped on the live stream. And so I was kind of like, oh, you know what? Let me see. Someone, you know, I want to hear what Dan Orlovsky had to say. And I saw what he had to say as I'm shoveling food, you know, down my throat. And I'm just like, oh my God, like that he brought up such great points. And I was frustrated that I didn't emphasize it in my own personal take. I emphasized that I think Jalen Hurts actually played a good game against the Packers. But the way how he kind of really highlighted it, I was like, I wish I did that. And I was frustrated. And so it was truly 4 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. And I'm going to post this Tuesday. And so I did. And so I encourage you to either watch my video or just go straight to, you know, wherever, NFL Live or First Take or wherever, because I think he had to take in multiple places. And it's just like nobody was open in that Green Bay Packers game. Nobody was open. And the fact that Jalen Hurts took care of the ball, was making the right throws at the right time. I mean, it was high-level game management. He ran when he was supposed to. He threw when he was supposed to. He threw the ball away, or he made throws that only a wide, you know, only the pass catcher would be able to catch the ball. He didn't put the ball in harm's way. I mean, it was actually incredibly high level football. Yes. Was it super fancy and transcendent like we saw Jaden Daniels do, or Josh Allen or Lamar? No, it was not. But it was still a high level football and deserves praise. I mean, again, especially in the weekend, this is what I said in my previous video when I went through the whole mountain, you know, especially during a weekend when we saw these quarterbacks. Let me see if I can get it right here. You know, we saw Herbert, and again, I'm not blaming all these quarterbacks for their losses, but they contributed. They legitimately contributed to the loss, whether 5%, 10%, 80%, doesn't matter. They actually did contribute to that loss. Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Herbert. I think everyone contributed except for Russ and Nix. I don't think Russ and Nix were necessarily the solution, but they weren't the problem either. Herbert absolutely did things to bring down his team. So did Jordan Love, so did Baker, so did Darnold. And I actually defended all 4 of those quarterbacks. So again, I'm not just saying they ruined it. You know, they're awful, but they did contribute. And Jalen Hurts did nothing to hurt his team. Not a single thing. And I would argue that he actually did things that benefited his team. It was a close, tight game. And at many moments, the Eagles could have lost that game if Jalen Hurts made a mistake. And he did not. He played mistake-free football. Can we stop pretending like it's easy to play mistake-free football in a Week 3 game at 1 o'clock on a Sunday, let alone playoffs against the Green Bay Packers, who have played a very great defensive game, as well as playing in Philadelphia. The crowd was booing. The crowd was booing, and ask any ex-Philadelphia, you know, or even current Philadelphia, you know, player, whether the Phillies, Eagles, whoever, they'll tell you, man, like the fans get on you, and that is pressure. They feel it, and Jalen Hurts did not waver. He was just kind of like, no, man, this is the game plan, man. This is what we're doing. I know the fans want to see me throw the ball 40 down the field. I know the fans want to see A.J. Brown getting a big catch and celebrating and dancing and doing all that. That's not the way this game is working right now. It just is what it is. And it's like, it just is what it is. And then you have to get credit for that. And I don't care about that game against the Buccaneers last year. Jalen Hurts dislocated his finger a week before the game. Let's not act like that's like you just pop it back in place and you're good to go. Like, stop. His knee was wrecked. A.J. Brown wasn't there. Jason Kelsey's retiring. I mean, Jason Kelsey was done. He was gassed. He had nothing left in the tank. I mean, they had terrible coordinators. So, again, don't put that on Jalen Hurts either. The fact that Jalen Hurts was even able to even remotely survive is actually pretty impressive when we saw all other quarterbacks around the league really crash and burn in various moments of time, whether because they had injured weapons, whether because they had a bad head coach or a bad coordinator. And we actually didn't see that from Jalen Hurts. I'm not going to act like Jalen Hurts had an unbelievable year last year, an unbelievable playoff game, but the fact that it was even the semblance of a good season, that they were even able to get to the playoffs with a terrible defense, with a disconnected offense, weird play calling, weird game plans, him obviously banged up and injured. The fact that he was even able to make something out of that season is actually pretty remarkable. It's actually very impressive. And again, when I give really big passionate takes like this, sometimes people think like, oh, what are you saying? That Jalen Hurts is the top 2 quarterback? Like, I'm not making that argument either. But you just can't put Jalen Hurts at the bottom in this situation and act like, what he's done hasn't been special. And yes, when we're talking about the playoff mountain like this, what you do in a literal Super Bowl, it matters. It obviously matters. You can't put up one of the greatest performances in Super Bowl history. You can't say that this is a rich tapestry and that the past matters. That's why we're talking about Stafford won a Super Bowl. Mahomes has all these Super Bowls. Like that we obviously know that the past matters a tremendously, a huge amount. Well, then balling out in the Super Bowl and putting up one of the greatest performances, how does that not put you ahead of someone like a C.J. Stroud? It just does not make sense. And if we're also going to talk about an individual game basis, and again, when I made my initial video with all of this, I put Jayden Daniels at the top because I said in just this week's playoff games alone, Jayden Daniels was the most impressive performance for me. But if we're looking at it from a whole playoff career, Jayden Daniels would have to be ahead of that too. Like, I mean, you just would have to do it. One of the biggest question marks about Lamar Jackson is, can he come up big in the big moments? And I've defended him. But again, big picture, looking at the resume as a whole, you don't question if Jayden Daniels can ball out at the biggest moment, because he did. He actually proved it. We always put these quarterbacks in this box where we say, oh, well, can they do it in the big game? Oh, okay, they could do it in the divisional round, but can they do it in the NFC Championship? Okay, they could do it in the NFC Championship game against the Cowboys, but can they do it against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl? He proved that he could. He proved against the Kansas City Chiefs, against Spags, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes. Like, what are we saying here? Against the dynasty of the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to act like that doesn't matter? That doesn't matter? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. None. And don't tell me, oh, well, he fumbled the ball. That's nonsense. Patrick Mahomes says, this is what I always say because it's honestly one of my favorite stats. Patrick Mahomes has won many Super Bowls and has amazing stats. And yet he's thrown 5 interceptions in 4 Super Bowls. Quarterbacks turn the ball over. It happens. But the difference was that the Kansas City Chiefs bailed him out. They picked him up. He threw a terrible interception against the 49ers and suffered no negative consequences for it. None. The Eagles were not able to bail out Jalen Hurts at that moment. And it's the difference between winning a Super Bowl and not. If the 49ers were able to take that ball, that interception, and put up points, get a touchdown, the 49ers win that game. And now we look at that game and say, wow, Travis Kelce got in a fight with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Man, he threw an interception and only had, 2 touchdowns, whatever it was, like, and a passer rating of 90, yada, yada, yada. But no, they won, so it doesn't matter. Because it was a team that came around. And now we add that to his list of, well, he won that Super Bowl, check in his box. And it can't be like that. We also always talk about how football is the ultimate team sport. But then we always want to throw that out the window. So no, putting Jalen Hurts at the bottom, it's insulting. It's insulting. It's absurd. Even if you want to say, oh, okay, CJ Stroud and Hurts are on the same level. I would disagree with that, again, in terms of playoff performances. But at the least, if you're still just trying to be like, hey, you know, like it's just insane to act like CJ Stroud is a level above Jalen Hurts in playoffs. There's no actual argument for it, none. And miss me with the nonsense of having these 2 home games against the Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco. And Justin Herbert and the Houston Texans, Justin Herbert and the Chargers, who turned the ball over, what was it, 4 times? Like what are we talking about here, man? Doesn't make any sense. None. 0. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jalen Hurts being at the bottom of Nick's playoffs? Mountain, whatever. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.